Hi folks, welcome back to the Cannabis Corner. I'm your host Kerry Burns. Good to be back with you. I wonder if the founding fathers, if they had a chance to come back here today, what they would think about what's going on in the United States right now. I wonder what they'd think about the groups like the Drug Enforcement Agency and Homeland Security and the National Security Administration and the different types of legislation like the Controlled Substance Act, the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937, the Patriot Act, and all this spying and all these cameras and stuff. I really wonder what they would think about all of that. And if you really think about it for a second, their first emotion probably would be one of sadness to see that this great country that they had fought so hard to gain freedoms for and establish what then wasn't even was unknown as a free country. They went to all that trouble, and then now we have this chaos that's going on in the world, in this world that we call the United States. And if you look at all these groups like the Drug Enforcement Agency and Homeland Security and the National Security Administration, which are spying on everybody through the cell phones and God knows what else they're collecting through all the cameras and stuff that are posted everywhere. But it just sort of gives you the feeling that you know, this country that we depend on to be free is really not free anymore. And this has never been more true than when the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937 was passed, and this pretty much was the beginning of the end for freedoms here in the United States as we know them. And people really never probably looked at it from that standpoint then, but the severity of what was going to happen, and of course the events that unfolded decades later really have all, you know, proven that this was sort of the beginning of when our freedoms were taken away from us here in the United States. When Nixon formed the Drug Enforcement Agency in 1970 and the Controlled Substance Act and all, this was sort of the follow-up of the Singles Narcotics Treaty, in which the United States joined in this band of what I like to call as a worldwide criminal group that decided that they were going to, you know, tell what individuals what they could and couldn't do, and then pass laws to make sure that they didn't do them. And this is just absolutely insane. This control that this group of people that through the United Nations Office of Drug Control Policy, when they first came up with this nonsense, was basically telling an individual if they decided to use the cannabis herb that, you know, for whatever reason they were using it for. I mean, all through history, this plant's not only been used for medicinal purposes, it's been used for, you know, to get high and to feel good. It's been used for as a textile to produce over 50,000 different products and all that. You know, this was a group that was just, you know, taking domain over individual lives. And this is wrong. We just, as a society, we're so much better than this to have something that so horrendous an outcome as this brings about when you make a substance illegal. And nothing was more true than when they passed the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937. Of course, this was done as a ruse in the beginning to find out who was growing the hemp and to kind of set them up, because they had to bring their products in to get their hemp stamp, and then when they did, they pretty much were not given any choice but prosecution and jail time. So it was really easy for them to enforce this law that was brought about illegally in the first place. And when the Singles Narcotics Treaty came along in 1961 and then followed by the Controlled Substance Act, these just were, you know, trumps on the suit of what had already happened in our country. And all of this was a debilitation of the freedom and rights of individuals which this country was founded on. I don't think that the founding fathers would think very much of the Drug Enforcement Agency, except that they were just a band of control freaks that, you know, were set up by, you know, a president that pretty much was a crook, Nixon. And I'm sure the same thoughts would be that of the Homeland Security, because if you look at these two organizations, just these two alone, under this auspices of protecting the public and making you safe and all that, you know, the Drug Enforcement Agency alone is responsible for the 60,000 deaths that occur in Mexico from this drug cartel versus the Drug Enforcement Agency and the so-called drug war that's been going on in this country, you know, since Nixon came into power. And you know, the blood of those people, all those innocent lives that have been killed and ruthlessly murdered by this group of people so they could control the marijuana coming into this country, falls on the back of the Drug Enforcement Agency. And more recently, since 9/11, with Homeland Security, a good bit of their daily functions and daily activities is to control the cannabis coming across the border. And if you've ever watched any of those shows that highlight these groups and all, this is very apparent. About 90% of the show is about them, you know, recovering bundles of cannabis that have been, you know, piggybacked across the river with, you know, people just trying to, you know, find a new way of life and a new place to live and work to support their families and all. A person's right to use this herb, this cannabis herb, is, you know, something that they're born with if you're a citizen of the United States of America. This is what freedom and having the pursuit of health, happiness, and liberty is all about. A lot of the people that use cannabis don't just use it to get high. Many people use it for medicinal purposes, as certainly has been exhibited many times by the medical marijuana field and all of that. And of course, we are always on board with anybody who uses herbs for medicinal purposes. There are many of them out there that have medicinal properties, and cannabis is no different. It's one of those that has extreme medicinal properties, and we certainly encourage people that have any sort of medical anomalies. If this particular herb works for you, we encourage you to use it regardless of the law. It's foolish. You hear stories of these young children that are having seizures and all, and they've tried everything the doctors have offered and nothing's helped them, and then they take a small batch of the cannabidiol there and mixtures, and they find out that this works excellent for their seizures, and then you have all this media that's just, you know, shunning that because you're giving, you know, marijuana to a child. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. You think these parents of these children that are having these problems, do you think that they're worried about the law when they're saving the life of their child? I mean, get real. That just goes to show you where our society's at. We have so many people out there that are just so geared up on all this wrong information about cannabis. They actually swallowed hook, line, and sinker all of the BS that the government had been throwing at them. And it's like this latest stuff they've come out with now, that young teenagers, as they put it, that start out smoking cannabis, that they you know, have brain impairment and all that, and this stays with them all through their life and all. I mean, there's no scientific evidence to prove this. I know myself, I've smoked every day for the last 45 years, and I have many friends that have smoked that long and longer, and none of them have brain impairment. And I would venture to say that we probably smoked about as much cannabis as you could possibly exhume in that period of time. So I don't believe these studies one bit, not at all. And when you look at herbs and look at the medicinal properties of herbs, and cannabis being one of the herbs and all, anyone that has used them and all, you feel the effects of these. You don't, you know, it's just not like something, oh, we smoke it and get high and ha, that's all there is. That's not how it works, and it never has been. And people, even through back in the dawn of time when they were, you know, in the early civilizations, thousands and thousands of years ago, were using cannabis as an herb and textile and all that. They weren't thinking about some, you know, stupid group coming along later and saying, hey, you can't do that. I mean, that's insane. I mean, you might as well take any food out there and say, oh, okay, starting tomorrow, we're going to make this food illegal, and anybody that decides to eat it or sell it or possess it or anything like that, well, we're going to throw them in jail. You can pick any of the herbs, lavender, rosemary, any of the basils. I mean, there's just tons of them. And you know, water for that instance, make it illegal, and you'll find out real quick how people will start killing to control it, how people will form gangs to sell it, how people will organize to make the money off of it, because when a substance is illegal, it will garnish a higher price. Now, of course, this hasn't been the case in Colorado and Washington where they have made cannabis legal, because they've taken the illegal cartel price that existed before those states made it legal, and now they've added a 25% sales tax on top of that. And all this has done is just, if you ask me, we have a new cartel price, and it's much, much higher than the illegal cartel price, and this is wrong. Cannabis should be selling for about $5 an ounce. It doesn't matter what the variety is, how strong it is. And if you allowed this plant to become legal, if you allowed the hemp industry to begin again in this country, you would see that the prices of all these substances would come down, and we would save money on so many levels. I mean, if the founding fathers could come back today and they had any sense of measure that they could take over again and straighten things out, the first things they would do is abolish things like the Drug Enforcement Agency and Homeland Security and the Patriot Act and this National Security Administration. All of these are the antithesis of what they, free nation that they had set up, what they had envisioned, what they had fought and died for through countless battles during the early stages of the formation of this country. And it's appalling to them, it's disrespectful to our country, and it's certainly an injustice to all of those people who fought like that to give us the freedoms that we're supposed to have today. But you know, every day I mean, it's like this new health care law that's come out. Now we're going to be forced into, you know, taking health care. I personally use herbs. I don't go to doctors, haven't been to a doctor in 35 years, don't plan to go to one for another 35. The only things I do when I start to feel a little bit sick and all, I you know, double up on my herb intake and all. And this helps me tremendously. And I know I'm not alone in this country. I know that there are many people out there that treat their illnesses or any maladies that they have, that they treat them in this way, and that they don't turn their life, limb, and body over to a doctor who has just got 4 more years of education beyond college. I mean, come on. People out there always seem to think that health care is one of these things where if you get sick, you go to a doctor. But what that really is in actuality is a failure of health care to keep yourself from going to the doctor and all. This is what the idea of using herbs and medicinal products like cannabis in your daily routine. This is what it's all about. It's sort of a maintenance maintainer, if you will, for the human body, and it will keep you healthy. And if you use these other herbs that can readily be grown by any individual out there, just like their cannabis and all, these are things that can enhance your life and keep you from going to the doctor. And it's just wrong that we have a law in this country that says people cannot exercise their personal freedom on how they want to regulate their own medicinality, their own health care, what herbs they decide to use, which ones they don't want to use, which foods they'd like to eat, which things they'd like to drink, which substances they'd like to take, which ones they don't want to take, etc., etc., etc. No law anywhere has domain over a person's individual right, as long as when they are using those substances that they don't bring harm about to another individual. If they act stupid after they do something at all, then certainly they should be subjected to some sort of punishment or some sort of, you know, arrest, if you will. But to just come out right and say that just because a person uses a certain herb like cannabis, for whatever reason they use it for, we don't have the right to lock that person up, call them a criminal, call them a pothead, God knows what, but we don't have that right nor that domain to exercise that type of control over them. Why don't the citizens of the United States that are just so hell-bent on giving the pot smoker like he's some kind of drug user or just some sort of misfit of society and all the trouble and you know, BS that you throw at the pot smokers and all, how come these people don't one time just you know, say, hey, what about all the killing that's going on south of the border in Mexico by this drug cartel pretty much over cannabis? Does that strike an accord with anyone? We all the time see about this heartfelt condolences and how they feel about all these people dying in Syria and all from the war that's going on there, and certainly it is an atrocity, but why do we just ignore the atrocity going on south of the border? And we know that this is being caused by the Controlled Substance Act and the Drug Enforcement Agency. If those things weren't around, if the Drug Enforcement Agency wasn't an entity, if the Controlled Substance Act had never been formed, none of those people that died needlessly would have died there in Mexico, because the substance would have not been illegal, and you wouldn't have had the formation of these gangs and any of that type of violence going on. How do we as a society just, turn a blind eye to all of this? I mean, what if it was in reverse? What if that was what was going on in this country? Which it is to some extent, because there are a lot of murders and a lot of deaths that are done by gang members in different cities trying to control territory from one end of the city to another, and they kill rival gang members, and a lot of this is over not just the cannabis control but drug control in general, and who's going to control the drugs on the street. Why don't Americans turn a soft heart to all of that? Why is it just because it's cannabis and it's an illegal substance that was made illegal by a crooked president and also enforced by pretty much a crooked group, the Drug Enforcement Agency, why does the people of America just stand by and allow that to happen? It just baffles the mind, and you don't think anything about people out there drinking alcohol that killing 150,000 people a year, all the prescription drugs. Do you know that more people die from that there are more prescription drug overdoses than there are car wrecks in this country? Now think about that. I mean, there's a car wreck that happens 3 times a minute. And so we have people out there that are taking prescription drugs given to them by a doctor or however they've obtained them, and they're causing tremendous volumes of overdose. And during this whole time, the cannabis plant has never sent one person to the emergency room. Now, I know that there's got to be some of you out there who don't smoke cannabis that hear the statistic, and you've got to, there's got to be a small part in your brain that says, hey, wait a minute, why do we have such harsh treatment of people for cannabis if it's never killed anyone? I mean, cigarettes kill 450,000 people a year, and all we do is make sure that you're just 21 years old to possess them. We don't throw people in jail when they go and buy them if we catch them smoking them or anything like that. We could care less. Same with alcohol. I mean, we put an age limit on it, and that's about as far as it goes, unless you're caught, drunk driving or worse, drunk driving, habitual manslaughter, and getting in a wreck and kill someone. But the harshness of the Controlled Substance Act, and we have cannabis right there along with the hardest category in Schedule 1. Does anybody ever stop and say, hey, wait a minute, why are we so harsh on the pot smokers? I mean, after all, this is an herb. And there were plenty of people around Nixon that way smarter than him, and even a panel that he himself set up to look at this situation, look at the cannabis situation and all. And they recommended to him that cannabis not be placed on the Controlled Substance Act. But, that fell on deaf ears, just like about everything that the government is told by either the private citizens or concerned groups pretty much falls on deaf ear, and this was no different. And it wound up not only on the Controlled Substance Act but in the harshest category. And the things we've done to the pot smoker in this country, I mean, honest to God, I really do believe sometimes that the reason they don't want to make it legal because they're afraid of all the retribution that's going to be owed to all the people that they have mistreated, mishandled, and certainly, tried to control their lives over when they had no business doing so. This is just unbelievable in this country, this double standard we have. We have people falling down in the streets drunk beyond belief, and if the cops catch them, they might get them for public intoxication. Yet pull a kid over to the side of the road that forgot to use his blinker when he switched lanes, and the cop finds a joint on him. This kid's going to jail, and he gets a criminal record. It's hard for him to find a job later, and he's pretty much dubbed a criminal the rest of his life, all because we have this stupid law. We have this dumb law that says that if you want to use this herb, then go to jail. If you want to possess this herb, go to jail. If you want to grow your own and provide yourself a safe, non-toxic herb, you know, the stuff coming from Mexico, I'm not even really sure why we even have any type of enforcement going after it anyway. It's very low grade. It's grown very poorly. In any way whatsoever, it hasn't got any of the properties that fresh grown cannabis has. The smell, the aroma, the intensity, the THC content and all of that's lacking in this stuff coming from the border. And really, this stuff here really should be grown as an industrial, you know, product for fuel, and maybe some of the lower grade products that are made from the hemp plant and all. But just to have a drug enforcement agency and laws and the harsh penalties that they throw at people when they catch them with this stuff at the border, south of the border, on this side of the country or whatever, it's just wrong. And we know it's wrong. It's been wrong. You know, as long as you have substances like alcohol and cigarette legal, you don't have a leg to stand on to make something like cannabis illegal. And the growers in the United States, if we were allowed to grow this without any type of punitive damage or any type of repercussions from the law enforcement or going to jail or anything like that, we've already proven that we can grow a product that's not only safer, it's better, it certainly is more medicinal. The varieties are way much better that we can grow here, particularly these indica varieties and some of those that come from Afghanistan and other places in the world where they grow naturally and occur naturally. This is the type of stupidity that's going on in this country. We're so concerned and wrapped up in all this BS and all this negativity and all these lies that the government has produced that we've really just kind of blown by all of the things that we should be thinking about this plant, about how important it is as a textile, how important the hemp industry would be to the economy of the United States, how important it would be to free us from foreign oil and from our dependency on all these countries out there that we give aid to that pretty much turn their backs on us when push comes to shove. This is just unnecessary. All of this waste of hydrocarbon that's found in the ground and the high dollars and expense that we pay for it and how it really burdens the average person out there putting $3 gallon of gas in their tanks and all. This is a burden on people, and it takes away from their food supply, takes away from, you know, clothing that they can buy their children and their general, you know, they're just their day-to-day health. This is wrong. Cannabis should not be expensive. It shouldn't be any higher than what it was back in the early 70s when I was buying it. And that was around $5 an ounce. We were buying pounds for $50 or $60. Didn't matter the variety. We were getting varieties just as strong as some of these today that they're selling for $20 a gram out there. And this is wrong. This can be produced by any individual that in his own home that has a small space. You know, he can produce his own and know that what he's producing is way safer than what he's going to buy coming from the street. Because first of all, he has to deal with gangs if he's buying it on the street. He doesn't know the source of it, doesn't know where it's came from, doesn't know what the cartel's done to it. And furthermore, when he buys it and all, he's not really even sure if he's getting what he was even sold. This is wrong, folks, on so many levels. Why is our society so hell-bent on these stupid things that have been said and perpetrated about cannabis, and we just totally forget about how wonderful this plant is, about all the many, many benefits that it offers and all. This is where the disconnect is in America. They have been so brainwashed over this that we totally have just blown by the marvel of this plant and how we should be captivating this plant. We should be making this part of everybody's daily life. It was not put on this planet to have this negative effect and this negative, whatever they want to call it, that they've invented about this plant. It's certainly not that way. And I urge all of you, no matter where you live, if you're in one of the states where it's legal, or if you're living in one of the states like I do where it still carries severe harsh penalties if you just get caught with it, please talk to people you know. Talk to people about and express the information to them that is accurate. Show them the statistics where cannabis has never killed anybody, where nobody's ever gone to the hospital. Show them that most of these lies that the government comes with is BS, and it's designed for one thing, so they can maintain control over us. This is wrong. Everybody out there who smokes cannabis, we all know this is wrong. We don't think that anybody should be allowed to do any of this to any of the citizens, and certainly make personal choices for people. This is just absolutely wrong. Please help us. Join the fight. Let's get cannabis legal in this country. And by legal, we mean that any individual that wants to possess it, wants to smoke it, wants to grow it for himself without any harm to anyone else, anyone around him, he should be allowed to do so. And not ever again should anybody be placed behind bars just because they possess the cannabis herb. Thank you, folks. And I'm sorry that I took so long to get back to you with the Cannabis Corner. We will be coming at you a little bit more frequently, but I do appreciate all of you out there. I hope you'll continue to follow us, and I do hope that every one of you, if you're not actively in the cannabis fight to make it legal, please get on board. We need your help, because this government, what it has done, all of these things like the Patriot Act, the Drug Enforcement Agency, the National Security Administration, all of that, these are all the antithesis of what our founding fathers had set up for us. And they're rolling over in their graves as we speak. And if they could come here today, I'm afraid that after this, the shed of tears that would erupt from their faces, then you would see anger beyond belief, because they know that all of their hard efforts, all of their hard fighting, everything they did, all their sacrifice was all for naught. I thank you for joining the Cannabis Corner.